I apologize. I have laryngitis today, so it's going to be hard to talk. But my impression is this session is your chance to ask a program officer anything, including how you might want to be a program officer here sometime. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleagues to manage the discussion.
One of the things that's my greatest hope, just putting this out there, is that you interact with us all the time, right? And, you know, probably you're sick of us by this point, but here's a chance, a unique chance to get all of us as a collective, right, as a hive mind of program officers to really ask about anything that sort of is of interest to you.
I can also say some great examples are, do you have any information on not necessarily solicitations, but ways to engage better with NSF, ways to learn more about submitting proposals to EPSCoR or other NSF specific programs. What's it like to be a program officer? What helps us do our work every day? Anything. You can ask anything.
Jeff has his hand up. Go for it, Jeff.
I'll take the prompt from, oh, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I'm so sorry. Chinonye?
Chi-Chi.
Chi-Chi. That's not how it's spelled, but okay. Thank you, Chi-Chi. I'll take her prompt and ask, what is it like to be a program officer?
Well, since I gave the prompt, I guess I should answer first, and I'm also going to change my name at the same time because I'm multi-talented. So being a program officer for me is a very service-oriented position. So I have a service-oriented nature to my personality. And the work that I do is in service to the country, to the scientific community that we serve, as well as making sure that we are able to carry out our mission. So for me, being able to have a service-oriented mission is very important for my natural personality and professional traits. Some of the things that I love about being a program officer is that I'm able to engage with folks within the scientific community at multiple career levels. I'm able to work with amazing colleagues on my team and throughout NSF. I could walk down the hall at NSF if I was physically there and talk to the nearest expert on artificial intelligence and get a quick brief and then come back and share with my team members. But I also really enjoy stimulating research, stimulating programs that help benefit the careers and the ability to build capacity, especially within our community. I think that from my prior experience, I've had wonderful opportunities to broaden participation in STEM. And so working here at NSF enables me to do that at a larger, more national level. And so overall, over time, the work that we do has an impact and benefits the country. So that's my quick answer, but I'll also ask my colleagues to chime in.
Happy to go next. My career was sort of an interesting one. I spent most of it at primarily undergraduate institutions, rolling through sort of all the way through sort of, you know, tenure and so forth, and all the way to a department chair. And one of the things that sort of happened when I moved to NSF is I made the realization that I was always in an under-resourced institution. For example, I developed our first SPO office at my second institution. And knowing where, and also I've been involved in writing and playing significant roles in track ones, roles in track twos, you know, I've been where you've been. And so the thing that really I enjoy the most is understanding the complex problem that is research capacity building. You know, intellectually, I find it just fascinating. And so working, and that's the first piece, but then also working with all of you, I think it came up in the in the breakout session, how every single EPSCoR jurisdiction is an individual. They're all different. And understanding those unique problems and how they fit within the context of the larger story of the US global scientific enterprise. How do we build that in a way that's smart, real, and also leverages the very limited resources that we have in EPSCoR? We're only 2% of the EPSCoR budget, right? There's another 98% for you to go after. So therefore, the things that I find fascinating is working out ways and creating ways to help you all develop pathways to make that accessible to you, right? And that just fascinates me and excites me. And every time I talk to Ray or Terry or one of you, or the track 2 groups, Jeff, and just have these fascinating discussions. It's just fantastic to be able to see that from your perspective and then work out what I can do to help you all really build that scientific enterprise and make the transition to being global and national leaders possible. It's as simple as that. And I think that's really cool, right? And, we do that as much as we can.
I'll jump in now. This is Subrata Charya, and see a lot of familiar folks over here. Dawn, Vesna, hi. I know Nick was there. But I come in from computer science and cyber, and I come in with academic experience, nearly 15 years. So I take the participation of females and underrepresented minorities in our fields very, very seriously. Now, I used to teach the undergrad calculus, algorithms, finite state automata, those things, the freshman courses. And I see why in a class of 30 students, I still have 3. And I'm from Maryland. I'm not from an EPSCoR jurisdiction. So I always contemplated that. And the thing that attracted me to EPSCoR specifically is how science is pervasive. STEM is pervasive. Our projects with West Virginia, where we have music majors producing apps for computational thinking and computer technology, so that transition, that ambassador which I can be for science is so satisfying, so gratifying that I'm here. I'm just pulled down by this COVID pandemic, but I'd love to move in and do that. But that has been my motivation, and the team, the learning we do through NSF and throughout has been instrumental. So if you're thinking, please, please, please come in, serve here as IPAs, as program officers. And I know Sandra says that a lot, but that'll be very, very valuable, coming in this side of the fence where policy and solicitations are designed and you can make a difference.
Okay, so just sort of cutting off here, I've just noticed the creative juices are now flowing with questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce between sort of Edwin first, then I'm going to go to one in the chat and then to Vesna. Okay, so Edwin, do you want to jump in?
I just wanted to ask what the recruitment process is like. And related to that, do you get pushback from institutions that don't want to let go of their faculty?
I'll just jump in with one sentence, Jerry, here. So I hadn't taken a sabbatical in 14 years. So they didn't tell me anything. but yes, there is sometimes pushback, and there is sometimes, because when I teach digital forensics, I teach all those specific areas. If they don't find me, they have to find somebody from NASA, DOD, and not NASA, but NSA, DOD, and so it's hard. So I get that, but I didn't get it personally.
So Edwin, to answer your question, I did get pushback from my institution, and I mean, it was real. But I think one of the nice things was that I was recruited for the CREST program in HRD. And at the time, I was the associate director for CREST. And the problem with our institutions, it's an HBCU, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, is that there's usually just one of you. And my department chair said, well, who's going to do your work if you go? And that's not really how it should work, and that shouldn't be the question. It's like, if you leave, hopefully you'll come back, you'll gain knowledge from NSF and bring that back to the institution. But sometimes your institutions don't see it that way. But the good thing was that since we did have a $5 million CREST program, our institution had to think about that. Do you want to have a fight with NSF, or do you want to just be nice and say, okay, let me release her of all her projects that she's doing and find someone else to do those. So sometimes there is pushback.
So basically, it's two things you have to do in parallel: is negotiate with your institution and also go through the recruitment process at NSF. And at the end, they have to agree. So.
And let's bounce to our second question. This is from the Louisiana jurisdiction. Are there any plans for an EPSCoR program or specific programs / departments looking to grow and be competitive? For example, a department / program with 2 to 3 PI obtains funds to enhance competitiveness in research and education, especially at schools that are nominally PhD granting, but the program department itself does not grant a PhD. So that's a really interesting one. You know, again, my advice, and actually, you know, Sandra and Andrew, you know, you may have some ideas from DUE where some of this may come around, or DGE. But the one thing that you've got to really assess within your own departments, having been in exactly this position myself, is you've got to assess the culture of your institution and understand exactly where they're at and what resources they have in their general scheme of things, right? And I think if you think of it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, understanding where it falls and what you can push internally to build the culture within your institution, and figuring out what the administration can actually push in, given all of the other pulls and pushes within your home institutions, allows you to start realizing where you are and then finding programs that then can then move you in. It positions you really well. I'll leave it to my colleagues for the rest of the question, and then we'll jump to Vesna.
I'll chime in really quickly because we just closed our Track 4 EPSCoR Research Fellows competition last week, which included an additional track that supported early career investigators from institutions not well represented in STEM to conduct Track 4 fellowships. And that track included opportunities for individuals from primarily undergraduate institutions and 2-year institutions, as well as minority serving institutions, to do a fellowship at a NASA research center. So those type of opportunities we try to develop so that we can understand how to better engage in outreach with faculty from institutions such as primarily undergraduate institutions. And we'll hopefully be able to continue doing those pilots so we can learn from them and to be able to learn how to do outreach so that those opportunities are well available and knowledgeable to you so that there'll be more participation.
Right, let's move on to, has anyone else got anything on this one? Just checking. Okay, Vesna, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, it's kind of related when you mentioned, but it's a completely different question on a different topic. When you mentioned how you are actually yourself being EPSCoR grantee and then move you. So we've been using our funding to apply for really big grants. Actually, we're just invited, as you know, for EFRC, and we put that together with DOE. So big thing, right? And it was really, you know, all the PIs that basically that were in this program, and that's what allowed us to actually do that. But, you know, chances of getting it are small, right? So I think we have a lot of momentum. So my question was, is there a way, and I think when we applied, it was that this is a 4-year grant, and then there was something about a possibility to apply for these extra 2 years of funding. Is this still on the table or no? No, none of that exists.
No, none of that. You know, as I say, we're constantly looking for alternative pathways, and we're constantly reevaluating, you know, the program, and Track 2 in particular, right? You know, one of my personal interests is, you know, I see Track 1s and Track 2, and again, this is speaking for myself, as really the meat in the sandwich, right? You know, This is that opportunity to bring humans together to do something extraordinary with that funding. And as I sort of commented in my opening comments, you know, we're just 2% of the program. So, you know, what I'm interested in is that gap, that bridging gap between sort of exactly what you're talking about, you know, and this is something that's coming out of, hopefully out of Future of EPSCoR, you know, as we're seeing that progresses, is understanding what we as NSF can do to help you then bridge those gaps to that, you know. And
you know, maybe we were shooting too much, but our, you know, QLCI proposal, you know, for these quantum leap challenge institutes, I'd be happy to, you know, show you the reviews. But anyway, you know, they told us that it's too forward thinking. I was like, you asked for a leap. So it's like, you know, there's a sweet point it's almost like, is this enough? You know, now we're being accused that we're too forward thinking, you know.
Yeah, it's
So,
kind of
you know,
like you're applying for your first job. You know, you need experience to get it, but you don't hit, you know, yeah, I know, I get
and then
it.
they said you're too qualified, you know. So it's like, so yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank
I
you.
think this is something that, you know, we're in the office is struggling, constantly asking those questions. You know, I know that my colleagues think about it all the time, you know, about how to really bring you to that next level and really how to build that. Subrata, you had something to add?
Yes. So since like you mentioned quantum, Vesna, I would definitely strongly advise you to just connect with the newly formed TIP directorate. They did mention about some of those engagement support. That would be a great way to, because they're rolling faster instead of waiting for a year long for resubmission. So if you think you want to
Which one
see,
exactly, if you
I will put that in the chat.
Thank you, because you know, the one with the extension, we were not qualified, neither Dartmouth nor Brown. We had too much funding. You see, there's a catch-22. There was a quantum, yeah. So
if you have an industrial lead, then they could be and you could be
okay.
the,
I'll look into when you put in chat. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, the next question that's on the list here, wait a minute. This is from Alaska. Various questions have come up during our last award period. Subawards. If we're an EPSCoR state, are we allowed to do a subaward with an entity that is a non-EPSCoR state? Remote work. If a current senior investigator moves out of state to a non-EPSCoR state, can they still stay involved in the project? Do any of my colleagues want to hit those? I can hit both of them, but everyone gets sick of my voice.
So I think with the subaward question, that is typically a case-by-case basis because not all subawardees are the same. We have to be cognizant of our congressional mandate to ensure that EPSCoR funds go to EPSCoR jurisdictions, and when NSF makes an award, it goes to an institution. So when we're making that award, looking at the subawardee and understanding the scope of work and the greater contribution to the overall project is part of the evaluation that goes into whether or not funds can go outside of an EPSCoR state. But we have our initial congressional mandate that we also keep in mind. And so unfortunately, that question is not a yes or no, it's a it depends answer. For the remote work question, I think that similarly it depends, but if you were previously funded on a project that has gone to your institution, you're still affiliated with that institution, but you're not necessarily in the same jurisdiction. There's some gray area, I think, in that case. Again, the funding goes to an institution, but we are also trying to invest and make workforce development investments within the jurisdiction. So I think it depends on the situation. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a more straightforward answer, but typically we do try to stay within the congressional mandate that we have to maintain.
I can say that for moving out of state, especially when we do co-funding, if a PI moves out of an EPSCoR jurisdiction, we no longer support them. But I can see where there may be a gray area, but they can still participate, but funding from EPSCoR would not be allowed.
And that's the same for Track 4. If a Track 4 PI moves to an institution that's not within EPSCoR jurisdiction, they can't take their funds with them. And they can't find another replacement PI. We usually terminate that award. That's in solicitation.
I just want a clarification on that question. Does that mean that the PI is gone, that he resigned from the institution, or he's still working in the institution but remotely from another state? Because that's different. So.
If we answer it sort of all three ways, the easiest way I can think to explain it, if they remain at the institution as their primary employer, right? So if they've left say, University of Alaska to go somewhere else to a non-EPSCoR jurisdiction, and they've left the University of Alaska to go to a non-EPSCoR jurisdiction, they are then may only continue in the project as an unfunded collaborator. And again, that's sort of how that works. Now, if they remain primarily employed by that institution, i.e. that is their primary place, then what will happen, and they move out of state just because they like living in a non-EPSCoR station, say that you live in Idaho and you want to live over in Pullman, right? Then that's a wash, right? You're working at the University of Idaho. So, you know, that's sort of the different sort of nuances there. Another question that came in, this is from the Alaska jurisdiction, which is great. Why are the annual reports due at the end of June when the project year's in September of that year? Most of our work is done July to August, so it's sometimes difficult to estimate expenditures made in May and June. Oops, sorry, my thing moved. I've been curious why the reports are due 3 months prior to the project year end. The answer is it's NSF rules, right? This is required in the PAPPG. We have zero control over that. But the rule is that when we look at those expenditures, what we expect is you make your best guess when that project award anniversary date is. And if it is not at the 20% sort of left in the kitty, if you have more than that, then we require you to go through your SPO office to give us a revised budget, right? So, you know, again, we're stuck within the rules or the federal rules just as anyone else is for that.
Yeah, so your report is actually 9 months and not 12. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Especially in that first year. And I think you all sometimes have, we've got to report everything in the first year, you know, where we're well aware that we see it as that first 9 months, you know. This is from Michelle. So a question about EPSCoR workshops. Can we have non-EPSCoR attendees, US and international, if they pay their own expenses? Attendees, not speakers, that's clear. So who's Andrea Sobrati, you guys run workshops?
Yep, so I can take it and then Andrea could add in. So the funds have to be dispersed to EPSCoR jurisdiction speakers, participants, you know, the EPSCoR funds stay in EPSCoR jurisdictions. We have had experts who come in through a virtual medium to you know, help support, advertise, or collaborate for future you know, projects. That has happened. Specifically in one of the quantum projects, this has happened. So yes, but the funds is a no. Like, you know, the fund allocation stays in EPSCoR. Andrea?
Yeah, you can have non-EPSCoR. We're not limiting you to the types of individuals that can attend your conference. It's just where the support goes. But if you do want to have speakers and they're in non-EPSCoR institutions or jurisdictions, you can support those speakers for this. It's just that the attendees, it should be restricted funding-wise to those in EPSCoR jurisdictions.
Great, thank you both. I'm just going to round this up just very quickly. Jean put in a quick thing in the chat regarding annual reports. This is certainly a frustration. We need the 3 months to get your next award increment out before the FY in September. So we want to make sure that you get your next increment in a timely fashion. That's also a key point that we also missed. For Edwin's question, this may have been asked before. The Track 2 supplements to collaborate with HBCUs. Was that a one-time thing? Is there any movement towards a new round of those? Watch this space. No promises, but we're thinking seriously about that and we're considering it at the moment. So we would be very excited to offer again. It depends on budgets and many, many, many other factors far beyond sort of our control. But we hear you, we know it was successful and we're excited. So with that, we are 1 minute over. So what I'd do is just on behalf of the EPSCoR POs, thank you all for attending. Thank you for great questions. And never be afraid to reach out to us, right? You know, that's what we're here for. Thank you.